Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Email. Jordan Manning stared at the email on his phone, reading it for the third time. His daughter's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had written with what she called a concerning matter that needs immediate discussion. The words blurred slightly as his confusion mounted. Why does your daughter call herself by a different name at school? He'd called Mrs. Patterson immediately, standing in his office at Tech Core Solutions where he'd worked as a senior software engineer for the past 8 years. The conversation had been surreal. What name? He'd asked, his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. Sophia. She insists her real name is Sophia, and she lives on Maple Street. Jordan's hand had tightened around his phone. They lived on Oak Avenue. They'd lived there since Emma was 2 years old. He'd left work early, his mind racing through possibilities. Emma was 6. Maybe she had an imaginary friend? Kids did that, right? But the address detail bothered him. That was too specific for fantasy. The drive home took 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. Jordan had built his life carefully, methodically. He'd grown up in foster care after his mother overdosed when he was 8. He'd put himself through college, working 2 jobs, determined to create the stable family he'd never had. He'd met Sylvia at a charity gala 7 years ago. She'd been volunteering, or so she'd said. She was beautiful, charming, and seemed to share his values. They'd married within a year, and Emma had been born 9 months later. Perfect. Everything had been perfect. Jordan pulled into the driveway and found Emma in the backyard playing with her dolls. His heart clenched at the sight of her, dark curls like her mother's, but his gray eyes. She looked up as he approached, and her expression shifted from joy to something else. Wariness. Hey, sweetheart, he said gently, kneeling beside her. Can we talk? Emma's small hands stilled on her toys. Am I in trouble? No, baby. Never. Your teacher said something today that confused me. She said you've been telling people your name is Sophia? The blood drained from Emma's face. Her eyes went wide with terror that no 6-year-old should know. Jordan's protective instincts flared. Emma, honey, it's okay. You can tell me anything. Always. I'm not supposed to tell, she whispered, tears forming. Jordan sat fully on the grass, pulling her into his lap. Who told you not to tell? Mommy. The word came out as barely a breath. She said it's our special secret. Cold dread settled in Jordan's chest. What's the secret, sweetheart? Emma began to cry, but the words tumbled out in a rush. Because that's what Mommy's other family calls me when I visit them. We go to the big house on Maple Street, and there's a nice man who gives me presents, and Mommy says I have to be Sophia there because she sobbed harder. Because the real Sophia went to heaven, and it makes Mr. Perry so happy when I pretend. Jordan's vision tunneled. His arms tightened around Emma automatically, even as his mind struggled to process what she'd just said. Sylvia was taking their daughter somewhere, to someone named Perry, making her pretend to be another child. How long has this been happening, Emma? A long time, since after my birthday. For months. Sylvia had been doing this for 4 months. Does Mommy stay with you at the big house? Emma nodded against his chest. She's different there. She wears different clothes and laughs different. She says her name is Desiree. Jordan closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe, to think, to not let the rage and betrayal overwhelm him because Emma needed him steady. Okay, baby, listen to me. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you understand? You're my Emma, and you're perfect, and you never have to pretend to be anyone else. But Mommy said, I don't care what Mommy said. I'm your daddy. And I'm telling you right now, you are Emma Manning, you live on Oak Avenue, and you are loved exactly as you are. He pulled back to look at her tear-streaked face. I'm going to fix this, okay? But I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? Emma nodded, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Good girl. Now I want you to go inside and get ready for dinner. I need to make some phone calls. As Emma ran inside, Jordan remained on the grass, his hands shaking with fury he couldn't quite contain. He pulled out his phone and opened the tracking app he'd forgotten was on their family plan. Sylvia's location showed she was across town, on Maple Street. His wife, the woman he'd built a life with, the mother of his child, was living a double life, and she dragged Emma into it. Jordan stood, his jaw set. He'd spent his childhood powerless, at the mercy of a broken system. He'd sworn he'd never be powerless again. He'd educated himself, made himself valuable, built resources and connections. Now he'd use every single one of them. By the time Sylvia came home at 6:30, Jordan had Emma fed and bathed. He acted normal, asking about her day, mentioning a work project. Sylvia smiled and laughed and kissed his cheek, and Jordan saw her clearly for the first time. She was a stranger wearing his wife's face. That night, after Sylvia fell asleep, Jordan went through her things. In her gym bag, the one she claimed she took to her Pilates class, he found a wallet with an ID. The photo was Sylvia, but the name read Desiree Howell. Jordan took pictures of everything, his hand steady now. He'd learned in foster care that emotion was a luxury. You survive by being smart, by planning, by staying 3 steps ahead. He opened Emma's tablet next, checking her photo gallery. His breath caught. There were dozens of pictures he'd never seen. Sylvia and Emma in front of a mansion. Emma with an older man, distinguished, gray-haired, expensive suit. Emma in a bedroom that wasn't hers, filled with toys that weren't in their house. Jordan downloaded everything to his encrypted cloud storage. Then he spent the rest of the night researching. By dawn, he knew exactly who Perry Stanton was, and he knew exactly how deep this betrayal went. Chapter 2, The Other Life. Jordan called in sick to work the next morning, something he never did. Sylvia barely noticed, kissing him goodbye before heading out for her errands. Emma was already at his parents' house for the day. Jordan had called him at 6 a.m., asking them to pick her up early. His mother had heard something in his voice and hadn't asked questions. He gave Sylvia a 15-minute head start, then followed. The drive took him through the suburbs into the high-end Riverside district, where houses became mansions and lawns stretched like golf courses. Sylvia's silver Lexus, the one he'd worked overtime to help her afford, pulled into the driveway of a sprawling Mediterranean-style estate. Jordan parked down the street, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He brought his camera with the telephoto lens, a hobby he'd picked up years ago. Now it would serve a different purpose. Through the lens, he watched Sylvia exit her car. She paused, checking her reflection in the side mirror, adjusting her hair. Then she walked to the door, and it opened before she could knock. Perry Stanton stood in the doorway. Even from a distance, Jordan could see the man's face light up. Perry pulled Sylvia into an embrace that lasted too long to be casual. When they pulled apart, Perry was smiling in a way that made Jordan's stomach turn. Then Emma emerged from behind Perry's legs. Jordan's vision went red for a moment. His daughter looked confused, uncertain. Perry knelt down, saying something to her. Emma's face transformed into a performance of a smile. The kind of smile that wasn't real, that children learned to give adults when they were scared. Jordan took pictures, hundreds of them. Every angle, every interaction. He captured Sylvia's face when she looked at Perry, calculating performative. He captured the moment Perry handed Emma a wrapped present. He captured Emma's small hand reaching for Sylvia's, seeking comfort. After an hour, they went inside. Jordan waited, his mind cataloging everything he'd seen. Then he did what he did best. He researched. Perry Stanton, 52, founder and CEO of Stanton Properties, a commercial real estate empire worth an estimated $200 million. Widowed 3 years ago when his wife died in a car accident. They'd had one daughter, Sophia, who'd been in the car. Sophia died 2 days after the accident, at age 6 from her injuries. Jordan felt sick. Emma was 6, the same age as the dead Sophia. He dug deeper, finding news articles, obituaries, social media tributes. Sophia Stanton had been a curly-haired little girl with a bright smile. In the photos, she bore a passing resemblance to Emma, enough that a grief-stricken father desperate to see his daughter again might convince himself they could be the same. Perry hadn't remarried. According to a puff piece in the local business journal from 6 months ago, he'd been focusing on healing and honoring his daughter's memory through charitable work. 6 months ago, around the time Sylvia would have started her con, Jordan's phone buzzed. A text from Dan Burton, his college roommate who'd become a private investigator after leaving the police force. Got your message. Coffee at Joe's in an hour. Jordan had reached out at 5 a.m., a brief message. Need help. Can't explain over text. It's bad. Be there. Jordan texted back. He took one last look at the mansion, at the life his wife was building without him, then drove away. Joe's Coffee House was their usual spot, a hole-in-the-wall place near the university where they'd spent countless late nights during their undergrad years. Dan was already there, his former cop instincts still making him arrive early to any meeting. At 34, he'd kept himself in shape, his dark skin barely showing laugh lines despite the stress of his work. "You look like hell," Dan said as Jordan slid into the booth. "Feel worse." Jordan pulled out his phone and set it on the table. "I need to show you something, and I need your professional help." 20 minutes later, Dan sat back, his expression grim. "Jesus, Jordan. Yeah, you're sure about all of this?" Jordan showed him the photos, the fake ID, the location data, everything. Dan's jaw tightened. This is identity fraud, child endangerment, possibly more. You could go to the cops right now. And say what? My wife is pretending to be someone else and making our daughter play along? What if Sylvia gets spooked and runs? Takes Emma with her? Jordan's hands clenched. I can't risk it. I need to know everything first. Every angle, every escape route she might have. Then I'll know how to get Emma back safely. Dan nodded slowly. Okay, I'm in. But we do this smart. Methodical. The way you code, one line at a time, testing as we go. That's the plan. First things first. We need to confirm Stanton doesn't know about you. That he genuinely believes Sylvia is who she says she is. How do we do that without tipping him off? Dan smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I've got contacts who can ask questions without raising flags. Meanwhile, you go home, act normal, and start documenting everything. Every time Sylvia leaves, every interaction with Emma. We build an airtight case. Jordan nodded, relief mixing with the constant anger in his chest. He wasn't alone in this. One more thing, Dan said, his voice softer. You holding up? I have to be. For Emma. Yeah, but who's holding you up, man? Jordan met his friend's eyes. You are. Right now you are. Over the next 3 days, Jordan became two people. At home, he was the oblivious husband, going to work, coming home, playing with Emma, kissing his wife goodnight. But in the spaces between, he was building a case. He installed hidden cameras in their home, legal in their state as long as one party consented, and he was that party. He documented every lie Sylvia told. Her lunch with girlfriends, that location data showed, was at Perry's mansion. Her work conference that didn't exist. Her shopping trips, where she bought nothing but returned with gifts for Emma that Emma had to hide in her closet. Dan's contacts came through. Perry Stanton genuinely believed Desiree Howell was a widowed mother who'd lost her husband in a military accident overseas. He believed Emma, Sophia, was her daughter from that marriage. He'd met them at a grief support group, which Sylvia had apparently infiltrated specifically to find a mark. The support group detail made Jordan physically ill. His wife had hunted a grieving father with the calculated precision of a predator. On the fourth night, after Sylvia fell asleep, Jordan went through her laptop. He'd installed a keylogger weeks ago, back when he'd thought he might surprise her with a vacation and wanted to know her schedule. Now he used it to access everything. What he found made his blood run cold. Bank accounts he didn't know about. Emails to lawyers about changing Emma's birth certificate. Research on international custody laws. Plans to move to the Cayman Islands. And messages, dozens of them, to Perry, talking about their future together, about how Sophia is finally warming up to you, about how soon we can be a real family. But the worst was the diary she'd kept, hidden in encrypted files. Perry is pathetically easy to manipulate. His grief makes him stupid. He'll do anything I suggest as long as I wrap it in concern for Sophia. The will is being updated next week. Sophia, and I will get everything if something happens to him. Not that I'm planning anything drastic, but accidents happen. At least they have before. Jordan's hands shook as he read. The last line echoed in his mind. They have before. He dug deeper. hacking through Sylvia's files with every skill he'd learned in 2 decades of software engineering. And he found it. Sylvia Sharp, her real name, before she'd become Sylvia Manning. Multiple identities across multiple states. 3 previous marriages, each ending when the husband mysteriously died or when she drained their accounts and disappeared. She'd been investigated twice, but never charged. She was too careful, too smart. Until now. Until she'd made one critical mistake. She'd involved Emma, and that meant Jordan wouldn't rest until she paid for every single lie. Chapter 3. The Depths of Deception. Jordan sat in his car outside a suburban park, watching Emma play on the swings through his rearview mirror. His parents were with her, giving him space for the important work call he'd claimed to need. In reality, he was meeting Wallace Stanton, Perry's younger brother. Getting to Wallace had been Dan's idea. Perry's brother was a lawyer specializing in estate planning, and according to public records, he'd been conspicuously absent from his brother's recent life changes. A Mercedes pulled up beside Jordan's car. The man who emerged was in his late 40s, fit and sharp-eyed, with the same distinctive jawline as Perry, but harder features. Wallace Stanton looked like a man who'd learned not to trust easily. Jordan got out, extending his hand. "Mr. Stanton, thank you for meeting me." Wallace's handshake was firm, assessing. "Your PI friend was persuasive. Said this was about my brother being conned." His eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." Jordan handed him a tablet loaded with everything. Photos, documents, Sylvia's fake identity, her history. "The woman your brother knows as Desiree Howell is my wife, Sylvia Manning. The child he knows as Sophia is my daughter, Emma. And I believe your brother is in danger." Wallace's face went through several expressions as he scrolled through the evidence. Shock, anger, finally, a grim recognition. "I knew something was wrong. Perry hasn't been himself since he met her. He cut me out of his life when I questioned her background." He looked up at Jordan. "How long have you known?" 10 days. "I've spent every moment since gathering evidence." "Why not go to the police?" "Because she's smart enough to disappear, and she's already researched taking Emma out of the country. If I spook her, I lose my daughter." Jordan's voice cracked slightly. "I can't lose my daughter." Wallace studied him for a long moment. "What do you need from me?" "Information. Access. Help making sure that when this comes down, your brother is protected and my daughter is safe." "You want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference." Jordan met his eyes steadily. "Your brother is a victim here too. I don't want to destroy him, but I will do whatever it takes to get him back." Wallace nodded slowly. "All right, I'm in, but we do this carefully. Perry's been fragile since losing Sophia. This could break him, or it could save him from something worse. Has your brother updated his will recently?" Wallace's expression darkened. "He called me 2 weeks ago, asked me to draw up new documents, including Desiree and Sophia as primary beneficiaries. I've been stalling, claiming legal complications. It's the only reason we're still talking. Keep stalling. We need time." Over the next week, the full picture emerged. Wallace provided access to Perry's financial records, with Perry's power of attorney that Wallace still held from when his brother had been hospitalized after the accident. The evidence was damning. Sylvia had convinced Perry to add her to several bank accounts for household expenses. She'd opened credit cards in his name. She'd purchased jewelry, clothes, and electronics that she kept at the mansion, building assets she could liquidate quickly. She'd even convinced Perry to put a deposit on a villa in Grand Cayman, claiming it would be a healing retreat for their new family. "She's done this before," Wallace said, his voice tight with anger. They were in his office, documents spread across the conference table. "I pulled records on her previous identities. 3 husbands. 1 died in a suspicious house fire, 1 in a car accident, 1 from a sudden heart attack. She collected life insurance every time before disappearing." Jordan's jaw clenched. "She kept a diary. Mentioned that accidents happen regarding Perry." "Jesus." Wallace ran a hand through his hair. "We need to move faster than I thought. If she even suspects she's been found out, she won't. I've been the perfect husband. Attentive, trusting, affectionate." The words tasted like ash. Meanwhile, Dan's been tracking her movements, documenting every lie, building a criminal case. "But we need her to make a mistake." something that gives us leverage for full custody and criminal charges. What kind of mistake? Jordan pulled out his phone, showing Wallace the latest text from Sylvia to Perry that Dan had intercepted through Perry's phone. She's planning to tell me she wants a divorce next week. She's already consulted a lawyer about getting full custody of Emma, claiming I'm unstable due to work stress. She's building a narrative where she's the protective mother and I'm the problem. Can she win that? Not with the evidence we have. But she doesn't know I have it. Jordan's eyes hardened. She thinks I'm the same desperate, love-blind man she married 7 years ago. But I've spent 7 years learning from her, watching her manipulate, studying her patterns. So what's your play? We make her think she's won. Then we take everything. The plan they formulated was risky, but Jordan was past caring about safe options. Wallace would tell Perry he'd finally processed the will changes and invite Perry to a family celebration to toast his new future. Sylvia would be invited as Desiree. Jordan would be there too, uninvited, with evidence and witnesses. Perry will be devastated, Wallace warned. He'll be alive. That's what matters. But first, Jordan needed to secure Emma. His parents had already agreed to take her for an extended visit. Jordan had told them enough to make them understand without burdening them with the full horror. Emma's therapist appointments were scheduled. Her school was notified of a potential custody issue, and Jordan's lawyer had emergency custody papers ready to file the moment Sylvia was arrested. Everything was in place. Almost. The night before the confrontation, Jordan sat in Emma's room, watching her sleep. She looked peaceful now, her face relaxed in a way it hadn't been since the teacher's email. He'd been shielding her as much as possible, telling her that mommy was sick and needed help, that she'd never have to pretend to be Sophia again. I promise you, he whispered, brushing a curl from her forehead, you'll never doubt that you're loved. Exactly as you are. Emma Grace Manning. My daughter. My everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Dan. Sylvia just left your house. Heading to Perry's. She's carrying 2 suitcases. Jordan's blood ran cold. She was making her move early. He called Wallace immediately. Change of plans. She's running tonight. Then we move now. Jordan stood, checking his gun safe. He had a license to carry, had taken extensive training after Emma was born, wanting to protect his family. The irony wasn't lost on him that the threat had been inside his home all along. He grabbed his keys, his evidence files, and his phone. Then he drove toward Maple Street, toward the end of his old life and the beginning of whatever came next. The only thing he knew for certain was that Sylvia Sharp Manning would never hurt his daughter again. Chapter 4. Building the Alliance. Jordan parked 3 houses down from the Stanton mansion, his heart hammering against his ribs. Dan pulled up moments later in his unmarked SUV, followed by Wallace in his Mercedes. The 3 men convened on the sidewalk, the weight of what they were about to do hanging heavy in the night air. Police are on standby, Dan said quietly, but they won't move until we have her on record admitting to something concrete. The DA wants this airtight. She's got suitcases, Jordan said, his voice hard. She's running. With Perry's money, probably. Maybe planning to come back for Emma later, or he couldn't finish the thought. Wallace's face was grim. Perry's not answering his phone. I'm worried she might have drugged him. She's done it before according to your research. The second husband, before the car accident. Jordan's control cracked. If she's hurt him, if she's anywhere near Emma. Emma's safe, Dan interrupted firmly. Your parents have her, and I've got an officer watching their house as a wellness check. Nobody's getting near her. Focus on what we can control right now. Jordan nodded, forcing himself to breathe. What's the entry plan? I go in first, Wallace said. I'm his brother. I have keys. I'll assess the situation, then signal you. We go in together, Jordan countered. I'm not waiting outside while my wife potentially hurts her brother. Wallace studied him for a moment, then nodded. Together then. But stay behind me. If anything goes wrong legally, I want it clear you were invited onto the property by Perry's power of attorney. They approached the mansion, Dan hanging back to coordinate with the police. The house was lit up like a celebration was happening, every window glowing warm against the night. Jordan could hear music playing inside, something classical and expensive sounding. Wallace used his key, and they entered through the side door that led to the kitchen. The music was louder here, coming from the living room. And voices, Sylvia's laugh, high and performative, followed by a man's deeper tones that were slurred, confused. "She's definitely drugged him," Wallace muttered, his face going pale. That's how Perry sounded after the accident, when he was on pain medication. They moved through the house, and what Jordan saw in the living room made his vision go red. Perry Stanton was slumped on the couch, his eyes glassy and unfocused. Sylvia, wearing an elegant cocktail dress Jordan had never seen before, was directing two men in moving uniforms as they carried items out of the house. Paintings, sculptures, a safe that had clearly been removed from the wall. "That's right, just load everything into the truck," Sylvia was saying, her voice bright with excitement. "Mr. Stanton is relocating for his health, so we need to be quick." One of the movers looked uncertain. "Ma'am, Mr. Stanton signed the work order, but he seems pretty out of it." "Are you sure?" "His doctor prescribed strong medication for his anxiety," Sylvia said smoothly. "I'm his fiancée, Desiree Howell. Everything's been authorized. Here's my identification." She pulled out a wallet, showing an ID. Jordan recognized it, the fake Desiree Howell license. But she also had something else, a document that looked official with Perry's signature at the bottom. "She forged a power of attorney," Wallace breathed beside him. "She's legally stealing everything." That's when Jordan stepped into the room. "Actually, she's just committing multiple felonies." Sylvia spun around, and for a split second, her mask dropped completely. Jordan saw pure rage and calculation in her eyes before she shifted into a performance of shock and confusion. "Jordan, what are you doing here? You can't just break into someone's home." "He didn't break in," Wallace said, moving to his brother's side. "I let him in. I'm Wallace Stanton, Perry's brother and his actual power of attorney." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "And these movers are about to be complicit in a robbery unless they stop immediately." The movers looked at each other, then at Sylvia, then at the safe they were carrying. Very carefully, they set it down. "This is insane," Sylvia said, her voice rising. "Perry and I are engaged. We're moving to start our new life together." "Jordan, you're clearly having some kind of breakdown." "Perry," Jordan said, ignoring her and moving toward the drug man. "Can you hear me? Do you know what's happening right now?" Perry's eyes tried to focus on Jordan. "Who?" "I'm Jordan Manning, Emma's father. The real Emma, not Sophia." Perry's face went through a slow progression of confusion, then dawning horror. "Emma? But Sophia, my daughter." "Your daughter died 3 years ago," Wallace said gently but firmly. "I'm so sorry, Perry. This woman has been lying to you. The child you know as Sophia is actually Emma Manning. She's 6 years old, and this woman," he pointed at Sylvia, "has been using her to manipulate you." "No," Perry slurred, shaking his head. "No, Desiree wouldn't. We're in love. We're a family." "Show him," Jordan said to Wallace. Wallace pulled out his tablet, showing Perry the evidence Jordan had compiled. Photos of Sylvia with Jordan, their wedding pictures, Emma's birth certificate with both Jordan and Sylvia listed as parents. Emma's school records showing her real name, their real address. As Perry processed what he was seeing, Sylvia made her move. She lunged for her purse on the side table, but Jordan was faster. He'd been watching her the whole time, had seen her eyes calculating escape routes. He grabbed her wrist, and she spun on him with a fury that was finally completely real. "You stupid, pathetic man," she hissed. "You actually think you've won? I've done this 5 times before you, and I'll do it 5 times after. You can't prove anything. I'll get my lawyers, I'll get Emma, and you'll never see her again." "Say that again," Jordan said calmly. Sylvia's eyes narrowed. "What?" I said, "Say that again." "The part about doing this 5 times before." She suddenly went very still, realizing her mistake. Dan stepped into the room from where he'd been standing in the hallway, his phone held up and recording. "Too late," Dan said with grim satisfaction. "That's a confession to multiple counts of fraud and identity theft, plus conspiracy to commit theft right here, plus child endangerment for involving Emma." Sylvia's face went through rapid changes: shock, rage, calculation, and finally, cold acceptance. "You think you're so smart, Jordan? You're still the same pathetic orphan who was so desperate for a family, he couldn't see what was right in front of him. Jordan stepped closer to her, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute conviction. You're right about one thing. I was desperate for a family, but I built one anyway. Emma is my family. And you? He smiled, and it wasn't kind. You're just someone who tried to steal it. Past tense. The police arrived then, flooding into the house. Dan had called them the moment Sylvia confessed. As the officers read her rights, she kept her eyes on Jordan, still trying to find an angle, a manipulation that would work. Emma needs her mother, she tried. You can't raise her alone. She'll be traumatized. Emma will be fine. Jordan cut her off. Because she has a father who will actually protect her. Something you never did. As they led Sylvia out in handcuffs, Wallace was on the phone with Perry's doctor, arranging for immediate medical care. Perry was crying, "Say my Sophia," over and over. Jordan felt a stab of pity for the man, even knowing that Perry had been a willing participant in his own deception. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, Jordan needed to get home, needed to see Emma, needed to hold his daughter and promise her that the nightmare was over. Dan drove him home, neither of them speaking much. As they pulled up to Jordan's house, Dan finally broke the silence. You did good, man. Emma's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, Jordan corrected. She's the only thing that kept me sane through this. What happens now? Now. Jordan looked up at his house, their house, Emma's house. Now I rebuild. And I make damn sure my daughter knows she never has to pretend to be anyone but herself ever again. Chapter 5. The Trap Springs. The hearing for emergency full custody took place 3 days after Sylvia's arrest. Jordan sat in the courtroom, his lawyer, a sharp woman named Maggie Lawson whom Dan had recommended, beside him. Across the aisle, Sylvia sat with a public defender, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She'd been denied bail, deemed a flight risk after they'd found plane tickets to the Cayman Islands in her belongings. Judge Alan Hayden reviewed the evidence with a grim expression. The forged IDs, the fake identities, the diary entries, the recordings. But most damning were the psychological evaluations of Emma, conducted by 2 separate child therapists. Your daughter has been exhibiting signs of severe anxiety, Judge Hayden said, looking at Jordan over his reading glasses. She's been having nightmares, expressing confusion about her own identity. The therapists both agree she's been subjected to psychological abuse. Jordan's hands clenched in his lap. Hearing it stated so clinically made it real in a new way. His baby had been hurt, deeply, by the woman who'd given birth to her. Mrs. Manning, the judge turned to Sylvia. Do you have anything to say? Sylvia stood, and Jordan braced himself for another manipulation. But what came out was worse than he'd expected. Your Honor, I love my daughter. Everything I did was to provide her with a better life. Jordan makes barely 6 figures. Perry Stanton is worth $200 million. I was securing Emma's future. The courtroom went silent. Even her own lawyer looked stunned. You're admitting to fraud? Judge Hayden asked, incredulous. I'm admitting to being a pragmatic mother. My daughter deserves the best, and I was willing to do whatever it took to give it to her. Jordan shot to his feet. You used her. You made a 6-year-old lie about her own name. Made her pretend to be a dead child to manipulate a grieving father. That's not motherhood, that's sociopathy. Mr. Manning, sit down, Judge Hayden ordered, but his tone wasn't harsh. The judge looked back at Sylvia with something close to disgust. Mrs. Manning, I've been on this bench for 20 years. I've seen parents make terrible mistakes. But what you've described isn't a mistake. It's calculated exploitation of a child. He signed the papers in front of him with sharp, angry strokes. Full custody is granted to Jordan Manning, effective immediately. Supervised visitation only for Sylvia Manning, pending the outcome of her criminal trial. And Mrs. Manning? I'm recommending to the DA that they add child endangerment charges to your current charges. Sylvia's mask finally cracked. You can't take my daughter from me. You did that yourself, Judge Hayden said coldly. We're adjourned. As they led Sylvia out, she was screaming about her rights, about Jordan poisoning everyone against her. Jordan just stood there, shaking with relief and residual rage. "It's over," Maggie said softly. "Emma's yours. Legally, completely. It's not over until the criminal trial is done," Jordan replied. "Until I know she can't hurt Emma ever again." The criminal trial took 8 weeks to prepare. During that time, Jordan focused on Emma's healing. The therapist had warned him it would be a long process. Emma had been made to question her own identity, had been used as a tool in an adult's manipulation. That kind of damage didn't heal overnight. But Emma was strong, stronger than Jordan had realized. She started drawing pictures in therapy, pictures of a little girl who was half Emma and half Sophia, slowly becoming whole as the weeks went on. She asked questions, hard questions about why Mommy had lied, why she'd had to pretend. Jordan answered as honestly as he could without destroying her. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices because they want things that aren't theirs. Your mom wanted things more than she wanted to protect you. And that was wrong. But it's not your fault, and it's not who you are. "Am I Emma or Sophia?" she asked one night, curled up in his lap. "You're Emma Grace Manning. You've always been Emma." Sophia was a little girl who died, and a sad man missed her very much. But you are not her, and you never were. You're you. Completely, perfectly you. "I like being Emma," she whispered. "Good. Because Emma is my favorite person in the whole world." The trial itself was brutal. Jordan had to testify about finding the evidence, about the systematic lies, about Emma's trauma. Wallace Stanton testified about his brother's manipulation, about the forged documents. Perry himself testified, looking 20 years older than he had months ago, about how Sylvia had targeted him at his most vulnerable. But the most damaging testimony came from Dan's investigative work. He'd found 2 of Sylvia's previous victims, men who'd survived her cons but were too afraid or ashamed to press charges before. They testified about her patterns, her methods, how she'd studied them to find their weaknesses and exploit them. One man, Kenny Sherman, broke down on the stand describing how Sylvia had convinced him she was pregnant with his child, only for him to discover later it was all fabricated. She'd taken $200,000 from him in medical expenses and preparation for the baby before disappearing. "She made me believe I was going to be a father," Kenny said, his voice hollow. "I'd never wanted anything more. And it was all a lie." Jordan met his eyes across the courtroom, and they shared a moment of understanding. They'd both been chosen for their vulnerabilities. Kenny's desperate desire for a child, Jordan's desperate desire for a family. Sylvia had found their wounds and stuck knives in them. The prosecution played the recordings from Perry's house, where Sylvia had confessed to multiple previous cons. They showed the forged documents, the fake IDs, the bank records showing systematic theft. And they showed the photos of Emma, looking scared and confused in a life that wasn't hers. Sylvia's defense tried to claim she had a personality disorder, that she wasn't fully responsible for her actions. But the prosecution brought in their own psychiatrist who'd evaluated Sylvia. "Mrs. Manning is a high-functioning sociopath," the psychiatrist testified. "She understands right from wrong. She simply doesn't care because she believes she's entitled to whatever she wants." Her diary entries show clear premeditation and awareness of the harm she was causing. This isn't mental illness. It's a choice. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, Jordan was holding his breath. "On the charge of identity theft, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of forgery, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. Guilty, 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 guilty." Sylvia showed no emotion as the verdicts were read. She just stared at Jordan, and in her eyes, he saw pure, cold hatred. But he didn't flinch. He stared back, and he let her see that she hadn't broken him. She'd tried to destroy his family, but he'd saved it. At sentencing 2 weeks later, Judge Hayden gave her the maximum on every charge, 15 years, to be served consecutively. With good behavior, she might get out in 12. Emma would be 18 by then, a grown woman, safe from her mother's manipulation. "Do you have anything to say to the court?" Judge Hayden asked Sylvia before finalizing the sentence. Sylvia stood, and for a moment, Jordan thought she might apologize, might show some remorse. Instead, she looked directly at Jordan and said, "You'll never be enough for her. She'll always know her mother is a criminal because of you." Judge Hayden banged his gavel. "That's enough. Mrs. Manning, you are sentenced to—" "Wait," Jordan stood. "Your Honor, may I address the defendant?" The judge looked surprised but nodded. Briefly, Jordan turned to face Sylvia fully. "You're right about one thing. Emma will always know what you are. But that's not my fault. That's yours. Every choice you made, every lie you told, every time you used our daughter as a pawn, those were your decisions." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But here's what else Emma will know. She'll know that when she was scared and confused, I protected her. She'll know that when someone tried to steal her identity, I fought to give it back to her. She'll know that being enough isn't about money or mansions or cons. It's about showing up every day and choosing her. Something you never did." He turned back to the judge. "I'm done, Your Honor." As they led Sylvia away, she was screaming, but Jordan didn't listen to the words. He walked out of the courtroom, and waiting in the hallway were his parents with Emma. His daughter ran to him, and he caught her, lifting her up. "Is it over, Daddy?" "Yeah, baby. It's over. Do I have to be Sophia anymore?" "Never again. You're Emma. Just Emma. Forever." She wrapped her arms around his neck, and Jordan felt the last piece of his control crack. He'd held it together through everything: the discovery, the investigation, the trial. But now, with Emma safe in his arms and Sylvia finally facing consequences, he let himself feel it. He'd won. Not perfectly, not without scars. But he'd won. Chapter 6, The Aftermath, begins. 3 months after Sylvia's sentencing, Jordan stood in the kitchen making Emma's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes with strawberries. It was Saturday, which meant no school, no therapy appointments, no lawyers. Just a normal day for a normal family. Except they weren't normal. Not anymore. They were something harder won and more precious. Emma wandered in, rubbing her eyes, her hair a mess of curls. "Daddy, can Grandma and Grandpa come over today?" "Already invited them. They'll be here for lunch." Jordan flipped a pancake, catching her grin. "Grandma's bringing her famous cookies." "Yes." Emma did a little victory dance, and Jordan's heart squeezed. She was getting better. Slowly, with setbacks, but better. The nightmares were less frequent. The anxiety about people calling her the wrong name was fading. She'd even made a best friend at school, a girl named Lucy who loved dinosaurs as much as Emma did. The doorbell rang, and Emma ran to answer it, after checking the security camera Jordan had installed. Wallace Stanton stood on the porch, looking uncertain. Jordan hadn't expected to hear from Wallace after the trial. Perry had gone to a long-term rehabilitation facility, working through his grief with intensive therapy. Wallace had mentioned he'd be busy helping his brother heal. But here he was. "Mr. Stanton," Jordan said, opening the door. "This is a surprise." "Jordan, and please call me Wallace." He glanced at Emma, who was peering at him curiously. "Is this a bad time?" "No, come in." "Emma, sweetheart, go watch cartoons for a bit while I talk to Mr. Wallace, okay?" Emma nodded and scampered off. Jordan led Wallace to the living room, his mind racing through possibilities. Was Perry suing? Was there more evidence needed? "How's your brother?" Jordan asked, sitting down. "Better. The therapy is helping. He's starting to accept that Sophia is really gone, that he can't bring her back." Wallace's expression was pained. "I came to apologize." Jordan blinked. "For what?" "For not seeing it sooner. For not protecting Perry better. If I'd been more involved, if I hadn't let him push me away, then Sylvia would have found a different angle." Jordan interrupted. "That's what people like her do. They find the cracks, and they exploit them. Your brother's grief wasn't your fault, and neither was her manipulation." Wallace looked at him for a long moment. "You're remarkably non-angry for someone who went through what you did." Jordan laughed, but it was hollow. "Oh, I'm angry. I'm furious. Some days I wake up, and I'm so angry I can barely breathe. But Emma doesn't need my anger. She needs me steady. So I save the anger for my therapist and the gym." "You're in therapy too?" "Damn right. What Sylvia did, finding out your whole life was a lie, that doesn't just go away." Jordan met Wallace's eyes. "But I'm not going to let her destroy what's left. Emma and I are building something new. Something real. Wallace nodded slowly. Perry wanted me to give you something. He pulled out an envelope. It's not money or an apology. He's still not ready to face what happened directly. But he set up a college fund for Emma. Full ride to any school she wants, graduate school included. Jordan's throat tightened. He doesn't have to. He wants to, he said. Wallace's voice cracked slightly. He said that Emma was innocent in all of this, just like his Sophia was, and that if he could help one little girl have a better future, maybe that's how he honors his daughter's memory. The right way. Jordan took the envelope, not trusting himself to speak. Finally, he managed, "Thank you. Tell him thank you. And tell him that when he's ready, if he ever wants to meet Emma as herself, as Emma, not as a replacement for Sophia, we'd be open to that. In a few years, maybe, when everyone's healed more." Wallace smiled. "I will. And Jordan, what you did, how you fought for your daughter, how you protected her even when it meant tearing your whole life apart. That's real strength." Perry sees that now. I see it. I hope you see it too. After Wallace left, Jordan sat with the envelope for a long time. Emma's future secured. One less thing to worry about. One more piece of proof that good things could come from bad situations. "Daddy." Emma appeared in the doorway. "Are you sad?" Jordan opened his arms, and she climbed into his lap. "No, sweetheart. I'm actually really happy. Someone did something very kind for you." "What?" "They made sure you can go to any college you want when you're older. You can study dinosaurs or art or computers or anything you dream about." Emma considered this seriously. "That's a lot of years away." "It is. Daddy." "Yeah, baby. I'm glad I'm Emma. I like being Emma." Jordan hugged her tighter, his eyes burning. "I'm glad you're Emma too. The world is better with Emma in it." Chapter 7. Moving Forward. 1 year after Sylvia's sentencing, Jordan stood in the driveway of a new house, smaller than the old one, but with a bigger backyard and a tree house already installed. Emma was running around the yard with a golden retriever puppy they'd named Rocket, her laughter carrying on the wind. "You sure about this?" Dan asked, helping Jordan unload boxes from the moving truck. "Starting over in a new place?" "The old house had too many memories," Jordan replied. Every room reminded Emma of when things were bad. "She needs a fresh start." "We both do." His parents pulled up, his mother already crying happy tears. "Oh, Jordan, it's perfect. Emma's going to love it here." The next few hours were a blur of unpacking and arranging furniture. Jordan's father grilled burgers. Emma showed everyone her new room, which Jordan had painted her favorite shade of purple. The dog ran circles around everyone, tripping over his own paws. It felt like family, real family, the kind Jordan had always dreamed of. Later, after everyone had left and Emma was asleep with Rocket curled up at the foot of her bed, Jordan sat on the back porch and allowed himself to breathe. Really breathe for the first time in a year. His phone rang. Maggie Lawson, his lawyer. "Jordan, I wanted to give you a heads up. Sylvia's attorney filed an appeal." The peace shattered. "On what grounds?" "Improper evidence collection, coercion, a dozen technical claims that won't go anywhere. The judge already denied most of them. But there's one thing. She's requesting a supervised visit with Emma." Jordan's hand tightened on the phone. "Absolutely not. The court will likely deny it, given the psychological evaluations. But you need to be prepared for Emma to be asked about whether she wants to see her mother. She's 7 years old, Maggie. She shouldn't have to make that choice." "I know, and the therapist will back that up. But Sylvia's making noise about parental rights, and we have to respond appropriately." Maggie paused. "Jordan, I need you to stay calm. Don't let her get in your head. This is just a manipulation tactic from prison. She can't hurt Emma anymore." But Jordan knew better. Sylvia could hurt Emma just by existing, by forcing Emma to think about her, to make choices about their relationship. Even from behind bars, she was still trying to control their lives. After hanging up, Jordan went upstairs and stood in Emma's doorway, watching her sleep. Rocket lifted his head, tail wagging softly. "I won't let her hurt you," Jordan whispered. "I promise." The next morning, Jordan sat Emma down for a difficult conversation. Her therapist had recommended honesty, age-appropriate but truthful. "Emma, honey, I need to talk to you about your mom." Emma's face immediately closed off. "I don't want to talk about her." "I know. but she's asking the court if she can see you. I wanted you to know before anyone official asks you questions. Emma's hands twisted in her lap. Do I have to see her? No, absolutely not if you don't want to. I don't. She made me lie. She made me be Sophia. She made me scared all the time. Jordan pulled her close. Then you don't have to see her. I'll make sure of it. Promise. Promise. The custody hearing for the visitation request took place 2 weeks later. Jordan, Maggie, and Emma's therapist, Dr. Shannon Wallace, all attended. Sylvia appeared via video link from prison, her orange jumpsuit a stark reminder of where her choices had led. Your Honor, Sylvia's lawyer began, my client has been a model prisoner. She's completed parenting classes and anger management. She's expressed deep remorse for her actions and wishes to begin rebuilding her relationship with her daughter. Judge Hayden, the same judge who'd sentenced Sylvia, looked unimpressed. And what does the child's therapist recommend? Dr. Wallace stood. Your Honor, Emma Manning has made significant progress in the past year. She's regained her sense of identity and security. However, she still experiences anxiety when her mother is mentioned. She's expressed clearly and consistently that she does not wish to see Sylvia Manning. Forcing contact at this time would be psychologically damaging. The child is 7, Sylvia's lawyer argued. She doesn't understand the importance of maternal bonds. In time, she'll be old enough to make her own choices, Judge Hayden interrupted. But right now, she's made her feelings clear through her therapist. And given Mrs. Manning's history of manipulation and the psychological abuse documented during the trial, I see no reason to override the child's expressed wishes. He looked directly at Sylvia on the screen. Your request for visitation is denied. You may resubmit when Emma is 12 years old, at which point she'll be better equipped to decide for herself. Until then, you're not to contact her in any way. Do you understand? Sylvia's face was impassive, but Jordan saw her hands clench. I understand, Your Honor. Good. This hearing is adjourned. As they left the courthouse, Jordan felt Emma's hand slip into his. Is it really over now, Daddy? Yeah, baby. It's really over. Chapter 8. The Final Confrontation. Jordan had tried to move on, to put Sylvia completely in the past. But 18 months after her sentencing, he received a letter. Not from Sylvia. Contact with Emma was forbidden, and she was smart enough not to violate that directly. The letter was from someone named Francisco Proctor, claiming to be Sylvia's brother. Jordan had never heard Sylvia mention a brother. In fact, she claimed to be an only child. Red flags immediately went up. He called Dan. I need you to look into someone. 3 days later, Dan called back. Francisco Proctor is real, and he is related to Sylvia. Half-brother, different fathers. He's got a record, fraud, identity theft, forgery. Sound familiar? Jesus. What does he want? According to his social media, he's been visiting Sylvia in prison. And get this, he posted about being in your neighborhood yesterday. Jordan's blood ran cold. He's watching us. I've already filed for a restraining order on your behalf. But, Jordan, you need to be careful. If Sylvia's got her brother trying to intimidate you, I need to end this. Permanently. What are you thinking? Jordan's mind was racing. Sylvia was orchestrating something from prison, using her brother as a proxy. She couldn't contact Emma directly, but she could have Francisco follow them, intimidate Jordan, maybe even try to grab Emma. I'm thinking it's time for Sylvia to understand that she lost. Completely. Not just legally, but in every way that matters. Jordan's voice was hard. Set up a meeting with her. Prison visitation. I want to face her one last time. Are you sure that's a good idea? No, but it's necessary. The prison was a gray, depressing building 2 hours from Jordan's home. He'd never visited before, had never wanted to see Sylvia again, but this needed to be done. They led him to a visitation room, separated by thick glass. Sylvia appeared on the other side, looking thinner but no less calculating. Her eyes lit up when she saw Jordan, and he felt sick. Jordan, she said into the phone. I knew you'd come eventually. Is your brother following my daughter? Sylvia smiled. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play games with me, Sylvia. Or should I call you Rebecca? Or Melissa? Or whatever your real name is. Her smile faded. My name is Sylvia Sharp. It's always been Sylvia Sharp. The other names were just tools. Like Emma was a tool. Emma was my daughter. No, Emma is my daughter. You were just the person who gave birth to her. You lost the right to call yourself her mother the moment you used her as a pawn. Jordan leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off your brother. You're going to tell him to leave us alone, to never come near Emma again. Or I will make sure that every single one of your previous victims knows exactly where you are and what you did to them. They already know. I was convicted. Some of them know. But I've got Dan doing research, and we found at least 4 more men you conned who never came forward. Men who are angry, who have resources, who would love to know exactly which prison you're in. Jordan's voice was cold. Prisons are dangerous places, Sylvia, especially for people who've made enemies. Sylvia's face paled. You're threatening me? I'm making you a promise. Leave Emma alone. Leave me alone, or I will spend every resource I have making sure your life behind bars is as miserable as you made our daughter's life outside them. I'm her mother. You're a sociopath who used a child to steal from a grieving father. Jordan stood up. Emma is 7 years old, and she's finally sleeping through the night without nightmares. She finally believes she's enough just being herself. I will die before I let you damage her again. Sylvia stared at him, and for the first time, Jordan saw something like fear in her eyes. If something happens to me in here, then it's karma, or justice, or just the consequences of your actions catching up to you. Jordan picked up the phone one last time. Goodbye, Sylvia. Don't contact us again, because next time I won't be this nice. He walked out without looking back. 2 days later, Dan called. Francisco Proctor just posted on social media that he's moving to Florida. Said he needs a fresh start. That was fast. I may have had a chat with him. Explained very carefully what would happen if he ever came near Emma again. Showed him the restraining order. Mentioned that I have a lot of friends in law enforcement. Dan paused. He's a bully, Jordan. And bullies fold when someone stands up to them. Thank you. Always. Chapter 9. A New Beginning. 2 years after Sylvia's sentencing, Jordan stood in the school auditorium watching Emma perform in her 3rd grade play. She was playing a tree, not the lead role, but she didn't care. She was beaming, laughing with her friends, completely present in the moment. Perry Stanton sat 3 rows ahead, his brother Wallace beside him. Perry had reached out 6 months ago, asking if he could attend one of Emma's school events. Not to talk to her, not to intrude, just to see her happy. Jordan had agreed, with the understanding that Perry would keep his distance. Perry had kept his word. He came to plays and soccer games, always sitting far back, always leaving before the crowd dispersed. He never approached Emma, never tried to relive the past. He just bore witness to her present, and Jordan understood why. Perry needed to see that Emma was okay, that she wasn't defined by what had happened, that she was thriving. After the play, as Jordan and Emma walked to the car, Perry approached carefully. Mr. Manning, may I speak with you for a moment? Jordan glanced at Emma, who was distracted by Rocket in the back seat. Briefly, Perry looked older now, but more at peace. I wanted you to know that I've established a foundation for children who've been victims of parental manipulation or abuse. Therapy scholarships, legal assistance for custody battles, support groups. He met Jordan's eyes. It's called the Sophia and Emma Foundation. I hope that's okay. Jordan's throat tightened. Perry, I can't change what happened. I can't bring my daughter back, and I can't undo what I let happen to yours. But maybe I can help other children. He paused. Emma saved my life, you know. Not intentionally, but when you exposed what Sylvia was doing, you saved me from whatever she'd planned next. I owe you both more than I can ever repay. You don't owe us anything. Maybe not. But I like to do this anyway, for Sophia's memory, and for Emma's future. Jordan extended his hand. Then I think it's a beautiful idea. Thank you. Perry shook his hand, then walked away. Jordan watched him go, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Perry had been a victim too, in his own way. They'd all been caught in Sylvia's web, but they'd all found their way out. That night, as Jordan tucked Emma into bed, she asked the question he'd been anticipating. Daddy, who was that man at my play? He looked sad. Jordan sat on the edge of her bed. That was Perry Stanton. Do you remember him? Emma's face scrunched up. From when Mommy made me be Sophia? Yeah, but he didn't know that's what was happening. He thought you were really his daughter because he wanted so badly for his real daughter to still be alive. That's sad. It is. But he's getting better now. And he wanted to see you happy because it makes him feel better to know you're okay. Emma considered this. Is he going to try to take me away? Never. You're my daughter. No one can take you away from me. Good. Emma snuggled deeper into her blankets. I like being Emma Manning. I don't want to be anyone else ever again. Jordan kissed her forehead. You don't have to be. You're perfect exactly as you are. 3 months later, Jordan got a call from Maggie. Sylvia's appeal was officially denied. The conviction stands. She'll serve her full sentence. Jordan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. So, it's really over. It's really over. Barring a miracle, she won't be eligible for parole for another 10 years minimum. Emma will be 17, old enough to make her own decisions about any relationship with her mother. After hanging up, Jordan went to find Emma. She was in the backyard with Rocket, teaching him to fetch. The evening sun cast golden light across the grass, and her laughter rang out clear and joyous. This was what he'd fought for. Not revenge, not punishment, though those had been necessary. He'd fought for this moment. His daughter, happy and whole, no longer living in fear or confusion. Emma looked up and saw him. Daddy, come play with us. Jordan walked over, and Rocket immediately jumped on him, tail wagging furiously. Emma giggled, trying to pull the dog off. Emma, Jordan said, catching her attention. I love you. You know that, right? She looked at him with those clear gray eyes, his eyes. I know, Daddy. I love you too. Good? Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Emma hugged him tight. You're the best thing that happened to me too. You saved me from the scary times. Jordan's eyes burned. You saved me too, sweetheart. You gave me a reason to be strong. They played in the yard until the sun set, Rocket racing between them, Emma's laughter mixing with Jordan's. Inside, the new house waited, filled with pictures of just the two of them, no traces of the past they'd left behind. Later, after Emma was asleep, Jordan sat on the porch with a beer and his phone. He scrolled through photos, Emma's first day at her new school, her soccer team winning a game, her birthday party surrounded by real friends who knew her as Emma and nothing else. He thought about Sylvia, locked away, cut off from the daughter she tried to use. He thought about Perry building something good from his grief. He thought about all the ways life could go wrong and all the ways it could be saved. Most of all, he thought about Emma, his daughter, his fighter, his reminder that love, real love, meant protection, not possession, meant building someone up, not using them as a tool. Dan's text appeared on his screen. How you doing, man? Jordan typed back. Good. Really good. We made it. You did more than make it. You won. Jordan looked through the window at Emma's room, where a night light cast soft shadows. Yeah, we did. And for the first time since that email from Mrs. Patterson had shattered his world, Jordan believed it. They hadn't just survived. They'd rebuilt. They created something stronger than what had been broken. Emma was safe. Emma was happy. Emma was exactly who she was meant to be. And that was victory enough. The end. 6 years later, Jordan stood in the kitchen of their home, now familiar and filled with years of memories. Emma, now 13, sat at the table doing homework. Rocket, now gray-muzzled and slower, at her feet. The doorbell rang, and Emma jumped up to answer it. Dad, it's a package for you. Jordan took the box, noting the return address. The Sophia and Emma Foundation. Inside was a framed photo of the foundation's newest facility, a safe house for children removed from abusive situations. A plaque read, in honor of Jordan Manning, who showed us what real parenting looks like. Emma peered over his shoulder. That's nice. Are you going to hang it up? Maybe in my office. Jordan set it aside. How's homework? Almost done. Then can we watch that movie? The one with the dinosaurs? Obviously. Emma grinned. What other kind of movie is there? Jordan laughed, ruffling her hair. She was growing up strong, confident, kind. She was everything he'd hoped for and more. His phone buzzed. A news alert. Sylvia Sharp Manning, convicted fraud artist, denied parole for 3rd consecutive year. Jordan deleted the notification without reading further. That part of their lives was over. Sylvia was yesterday's nightmare. Emma was today's joy and tomorrow's hope. Dad, Emma looked at him, her expression serious for a moment. Thank you. For what, sweetheart? For fighting for me. Mrs. Wallace, my therapist, she helped me understand everything better. What happened, why it was wrong, why it wasn't my fault. Emma's eyes were bright but clear. But you're the one who actually saved me. So, thank you. Jordan pulled her into a hug. You never have to thank me for that. Being your dad is the greatest gift of my life. Even with all the drama, especially with all the drama, because it proved something important. What? That we're unbreakable. You and me. No matter what the world throws at us, we've got each other. And that's enough. Emma squeezed him tighter. More than enough. Outside, the sun was setting on another day. Inside, father and daughter settled in to watch their movie, Rocket snoring softly at their feet. The past was behind them. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. And Jordan Manning, who'd once been a powerless foster kid dreaming of family, had built exactly what he'd always wanted. A home filled with real love, real trust, and a daughter who knew, without doubt, that she was valued for exactly who she was. Some victories take years. Some battles scar you forever. But some fights are worth every wound because they protect something irreplaceable. Emma was irreplaceable, and Jordan had made sure the whole world knew it. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.